Wizard of Oz, the surrogate mother for Dorothy. Emma, it's also the word for a city, metropolis, a factory. Resources come into the factory, they're worked on, and out comes a product. Same thing as a mother. The seed comes in, it's developed, and out comes the baby. The same picture. The other interesting thing, though, is if you take the word mem tav, it's actually the word for death, a corpse, dead. So you can say, wow, why would the word for mother, which is where life is made, and the word for death, how could it be that word for truth? The letter Aleph as a prefix basically means I am or I will. The letter Tav at the end of a word can mean past tense or future tense, like this is what I will do, or this is what has been done. If you put all those concepts together, the truth is, I will be born of a mother and die according to the terms of the covenant. Now, who do you suppose that's talking about? Yeshua's in the Aleph. But you can't see that unless you read Hebrew. Anyway, so when you say, well, what's this Aleph Tav? It's pronounced et, because the Aleph is a silent letter. It's the one silent letter is the Aleph, but it has an inferred phonetic of a E. Not a long vowel E, but like a short vowel E sound. Et. Et. Does anybody see a movie called The Extraterrestrial? Who is this Yeshua? He's the extraterrestrial. Do you think Spielberg had something in mind when he decided to name it that? Well, if you look back and watch E.T. the movie, it's like the whole thing is a Christ picture. It's a Messiah thing. He comes from outer space, he meets this one guy, let your heart light glow, and they try to kill him, and he comes back to life, and he leaves, and he's going to come back, and the whole thing is a parable of the Messiah, the extraterrestrial, the Aleph Tav. But if you don't read Hebrew, you never see it. So what was the word? Well, if you say the word was et, Aleph Tav, well, that's only 2 letters. What do you do with all the other letters? Well, the other letters are contained. Well, you could say, well, what if Emet was the word? In the beginning was the word, and the word was Elohim? Well, the word Aleph Tav isn't Elohim, necessarily. It's referring to Yeshua, who is the sent one of Elohim. But if the word in John 1:1 is Elohim, but it was with Elohim, Aleph Tav was with Elohim, but what was the word that was Elohim? Okay, is there anybody else have any other ideas? And then I'll go on to it. Okay, let me cut to the chase here. If you say, who is Elohim? Well, Elohim really, if somebody says, what's the name of Elohim? What's the name of Elohim? See, I would kind of disagree with a qualifier. Yahweh can't be the name of the true Elohim. Strange words, right? Think about it. The true Elohim is the unlimited one. As soon as you give him a limit, which is a name, you've limited the unlimited one. So that can't be his name. Right? It's just a little simple logic. If you call him the Father, you've now limited the unlimited one, so that can't even be true. Because the true, in Hebrew there's a word, ein. And to spell it with English letters, it's A-I-N, ein. It means nothing. In English, the easy way to remember it, ein, you add a T, ain't. I ain't got nothing. Ain't means you don't got nothing there, right? So ein means without. And then this word sof, which happens to be Samic Vav Pei, if you would put a yod in front of it, it's, put the Vav there. It's the same word as Yosef. Sof. It means limit. But not only does sof mean limit, it's the word as in Yom Suf, sea of reeds. A reed is a straw, that which sucks up. A sponge sucks up. A sofa You step into the room and it sucks everybody into sitting in the sofa. It's the same exact word. It's where you get soup. How do you get soup? You suck up the soup. The same word, S and P. The P and the PH is the same letter, the P. Soup, sofa, Yom Suf, Yosef. The same exact word. What did Yosef do? Joseph. He went to Egypt. He was promoted to the position of vizier. He interpreted the dream. He accumulated all the wealth of Egypt. Put them in storehouses. And then he accumulated everybody's attention as they came to him and gave them their money, and he gave them out their food, and then he accumulated all the wealth. To accumulate is this word soph, samic pay. It's also the word goblet, is a soph. Remember what Joseph did? He held a goblet. His name was Zaphnath Paneah, the diviner, the one who could reveal mysteries. And he held a goblet. And he put the goblet in the bag, and when they dragged his brothers back, he says, don't you know by this goblet I divine mysteries? And you thought you could pull a fast one by stealing it? And his brothers were scared, and remember he put it in Benjamin's sack. But by him holding this goblet, what's a goblet? A Yosef. He will accumulate. The word goblet is, you can find it out in the dictionary. You look in the dictionary and you go, there's all these underlying things in the Hebrew words which you just can't see in English. Anyway, Ein Sof means, if Sof is to accumulate, it means there's no limit. There's no door. There's no threshold, because it also means threshold, and people have to come to his threshold in order to get stuff. Well, if there's no back door, there's no threshold, that's kind of what this means. In other words, if you went to Home Depot or Super Walmart and you kept walking and walking and walking, well, you can't find the back door. It's just so full, you just keep going and going and going. There's no limit. That's the picture of Ein Sof. Literally, there's no threshold, there's no back door, there's no place where you can draw a line that says this is where it starts and this is where it ends. That's Ein Sof. So if you were to say, Father, that's a limit. If you were to say Creator, that's a limit. So here's a predicament. How does the infinite one reveal himself, especially to finite minds? How does he do that? The only way the infinite one can relate who he is and what he's about to finite minds is to create a smaller enclosed limit, and then have that thing which is the limit match the capacity of the mind or the heart of the one he created, a human. So it's almost like the Almighty, the infinite, created the understanding of who he is, or the revelation. He determined that the revealing of who he would be is like a glove, or maybe he the hand, and he created our minds to be like the glove, that his hand would fit. All we know is what he revealed of himself. We can't comprehend what he didn't reveal. He created a color spectrum of violet through red. But I've read books from people who supposedly went to heaven and they saw colors that they can't describe. There's no words. If you don't have the words, you can't describe it. The only thing that we can describe is with the vehicle, the tool of the words that he gave us. The only way we can comprehend him is if he chose to reveal a limited aspect of himself and then created us with the capacity to apprehend that limited aspect. So he created us with the capacity to understand the notion of Father and said, I'm just like that. And even more. He created the universe as big as it is, and he says, I'm just like that, only much bigger. I'm the guy who made that. But beyond that, and you can't even know what I'm talking about beyond that. So all we know of Elohim is really a very limited regard, but it's all we know of him. So this word, which is Elohim, certainly is not even close to who he is, but it's all we got because that's all he gave us. So it's also with Elohim, because the letter bet means with or among or in or through. It's through this vehicle is all we know of Elohim. But it's not completely him, but it's as close to him as he's given us to know. if you had a lens, say a green lens, and you take a white light and you shine it through this lens, everything looks green. This word that he created, which is a reduction of who he really is, but for all intents and purposes, it's all he is that he's allowed us to note or bear reference to. He then shines his light of himself through this, but it's a filter. And the only thing that comes through is what this very small filter gate will allow to come through. The only wavelength that comes through a colored lens is what that lens filters out, right? So you take the majesty of the Ein Sof, and he blasts it through this little filter, and the only thing you see is what this word allows to be seen, to use that same picture of the light. And then this word, this filter gate, this limit, actually becomes manifested in human form, became flesh and dwelt among us. And this word, this limit, was everything that he was, but not to its full extent, but it's everything he chose to reveal at this time about who he was, to the limited capacity of understanding of the humans that he would make. So what was the word? To cut to the chase, I'm suggesting this is the word. All the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Because each of the 22 letters, not just the Aleph, not just the Tav, not just the Yod, the Hey, the Vav, but all 22 letters are him, are something which he decided and determined to reveal about himself. So I'm going to go on to read a couple more things here. Have you ever thought, given the English alphabet, that it actually meant something? Has anybody ever had that thought? That the English alphabet meant something? Nobody? A couple people in a couple other congregations, in fact, 3 people in a Rosi, 2 kids and 1 older lady, said that they thought it meant something. I said, well, what'd you come up with? And one kid said, well, I tried to look at it, and I didn't know what to do with it. There was one lady that I talked to one time, she said when she was a little girl, she thought, A, if you looked into A, apple, artist, author, there's something about the world of A, which is like its whole own world, in the world of B, in the world of C. And so it was just a fleeting thought as a little girl, and she didn't know. It's like, that's just some fantasy thing. It's like, that's exactly what it is. So when I asked, did anybody ever think that the English alphabet meant something? I'm just curious as to know, did any of these thoughts ever come into anybody's mind ever before? What if the English alphabet was its own word, one word? You say, well, that's a pretty strange word. Normally, words are spelled by taking individual letters from the alphabet, rearranging them, shuffling them around, and then they mean something. And some words are pretty big, anti-disestablishmentarianism, or supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Those are big words, and they mean something, or maybe that one doesn't, but what would the whole alphabet read as one word spelled this way actually mean? For what it's worth, here's the Hebrew alphabet read as one word. The question is, could it mean something? Abagada havazachati kalamana sachafatz karashta. What does that mean? We don't know, it's a foreign language. But what if it was in English? What does it mean? Have you ever thought that it might mean something? How, going back to the original question, how do we know we're right? How does one group of religious aficionados, people that are like really into their religion, how this one has a Christ, this one has a Messiah, this one a God or a Lord or a prophet, how did any one of them qualify whether their guy is right and truthful in telling them that they're right and everybody else is wrong? How would we do that? If we're Christians, how do we prove that our Christ is the real Christ? Is faith simply belief? Is it simply trust? Is it like, listen, I can't prove anything, I choose to believe? Is that all it is? Can you prove it? Even if you're sure, even if you're confident, does that prove it's true? Huh? You can find elements of proof that convince you that you're on the right track, but what if you're on the wrong track? After all, I would bet that there's people that are involved in Islam or Hinduism or Buddhism that they could say, oh yes, no, we've seen miracles and it's true. As a matter of fact, I looked on the internet right after the tsunami that hit Indonesia. Astounding. Absolute devastation of miles of countryside, and the only buildings left standing were Islamic mosques. And they said, this is proof that our God reigns. And it's such absolute proof, there's no question. You Christians, you Jews, you anybody else can say anything you want. The fact that there was a tsunami and numerous mosques was the only buildings left standing. Everything else absolutely wiped out. They're convinced. Now, can I say that's not true? I can't say that. One might believe or trust in anything. How confident was a child believing in the tooth fairy or Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny? And the proof was there, year after year, tooth after tooth. What's that? So we have to go check the kids, are you saying? Okay. Okay. Oh, well, sorry. Okay, anyway, it doesn't make it true simply because you believe it. You can believe it with all your heart. It doesn't make it true. You can have visions of your loved ones in heaven. Does it mean they're there? Not necessarily. Okay. I was talking to a guy. I was talking to the guy once about, the spirit of Christmas doesn't even exist. He said, no, that's not true. The collective regard of everybody together kind of makes the spirit of Christmas kind of a real thing. Everybody has a good attitude, like we were saying earlier. Hey, let's get along and let's be rejoicing and saying. Philosophically, that's kind of a real thing. But I'm not talking about that. We're not talking about a philosophical, group consciousness, phantasm sort of a thing. I'm talking about a reality. What is real? How does somebody determine real? Okay. In quantum physics, just briefly, it's a study of little tiny things. If you look at matter, right? That's something solid. That's real, right? It's made up of molecules, which is made up of atoms, which is made out of nucleus and electrons. I think it's much bigger than this. From what I was told, the distance between a center neutron and the first electron, comparative size. If you took a pea and stuck it at one end of a football field and another pea at the other end of the football field, that's the expanse of empty space between a nucleus and an electron. And if you wanted a model of one atom, it would be like looking at the solar system. Here's the sun, millions of miles away, here's an electron like a planet, another millions of miles away is another electron. Within one atom, it's mostly empty space. I mean, the amount of matter compared to empty space is so vast. There's really nothing solid. It's all empty space. Even this. In fact, there's a certain theory of science that I'm not touching this because there's always a space in between. Even though I hear it, I'm not really touching it. I think I'm feeling it, but I'm just feeling some kind of shock coming back. And anything we think exists doesn't really exist as we know it. We're completely deluded when it comes to what is reality. So how do we know we're right when it comes to what we believe? Okay. We've been given 5 senses, but we also have been given thoughts to place ourselves in this environment and decide how we're going to do, where we're going to go. Okay, so we evaluate and discriminate our placement in this world by choice. what I'm saying is, we have 5 senses to perceive our environment, and then my thoughts are giving me to direct me where I'm going to go. Am I going to stand here? Am I going to sit down? Am I going to go watch TV? Okay. Choice is a steering mechanism. If you're playing a video game, you choose how to engage the field, but it's not real. It's in cyberspace somewhere. But we make the decisions by navigating. Navigating is steering control. So we are almost interfacing this world the same way as on a video game, you're kind of steering, or like a ship on the seas. Okay, what is the basis for determining a value for making one decision or another decision? Why should you choose Judaism or Christianity? Why should you choose Islam or Buddhism? You choose to believe one is true, but it's based on something that we have no basis, no bearing for deciding what's true. I can sit here and preach to you a message, but why should you believe it? Okay. What factors provoke us to decide what to do? Toward what end? What goal? What are we trying to accomplish with our days on this planet? What is our life for? What is the standard for a well-lived life? These are pretty serious questions, I think. By what evaluation can we live our life and then hope to hear one day these words? Well done, good and faithful servant. By what standard is he measuring us? Do we have any clue? Oh, we hope that this preacher was telling us the truth. We hope that this book was accurate. We hope that the Quran or the Torah or the New Testament or Darwin's evolution was the truth. We hope, but how do we know for sure? Are we being held accountable for a standard? Is the standard what we do? Is the standard what we believe? If somebody says, oh, by the measure of your faith, is it our faith? Is it just what we believe? Is it what we choose? Is it what we say? Is it what we choose to love? Is it all these things? Who says it's all these things? Where do we find the standard? And if I look back at the Torah and say, oh, look, it says thus and thus, and the Christian church says, oh, no, it's not. That was done away with. Who do I believe? How do I know? My life is on the line. I hope to one day to stand in front of the Ein Sof, the Almighty, and say, did I do okay? I don't know. I didn't have a standard. I played video games every day. Did I do okay? I heard it once said that if you were a plumber in Des Moines, is you going to stand in front of him and say, you blew your life. You should have been a carpenter in St. Louis. How do we know if we're living our life properly? How do we know if we're going to measure it? How can we say that anybody else believes the wrong thing? Where's the plumb line? Where's the plumb line for determining any of this? How can we know how to steer if we don't know where we're going? How can we choose when we don't know why? How can we be judged if there's no instruction, no basis, nothing solid to reference against? How can we be determined faithful without a commission to fulfill? How can we be doing something well if we don't know what to do? Where's the plumb line? In Hebrew, the very first word of the Ten Commandments is spelled, it's Anoki. It's spelled Aleph, Nun, Kav, Yod. Anoki. The very first word of the Ten Commandments. It's simply translated, I am. The phrase is, Anoki Yahweh Elcheka. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. What's in a word? Here. This is a little bit of the study that I've been doing. The Aleph as a prefix means I, as in I am or I will. The Yod as a suffix means mine. Now, I said this was the illiterate way to read, but that's kind of a little bit of literacy. You gotta know some of that. But it's pretty simple. After all, Aleph is this initiating thing. So Aleph is the first letter, so it's like the I going in. And the hand, the word for let there be light, Yehi, is spelled Yod He Yod. Yod He Yod. There's a hand, there's a revealing of something, and there's another hand. The hand of the artist. He puts his hand towards painting a picture, or the musician writing a song, puts it on display. This letter He is to put something on display, and then they say, this is mine, I wrote this, and they sign it. The Yod, putting your hand to it, displaying it, and putting the Yod at the end of it, saying this is mine. It's the word Yehi. You can see it in the pictures. It's the word translated, let there be. But it's also translated, and there was. And it's also translated, there came to be. As in, Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Boker, Yom Echad, there came to be evening and morning, day one. But it's just Yehi. It's not different tenses. So when Yahweh said, let there be light, the narrative says, and there came to be light. That's not what happened. In Hebrew, Yahweh says, Yehi Or, and Yehi Or. It doesn't make any sense in English. It's like this, Yehi Or. And what happened is, Yehi Or. Exactly the same. He didn't say, let there be and there was. He said, Yehi Or, and what happened was Yehi Or. A very other interesting thing about the word that somebody mentioned about the Almighty, I am that I am, or I will be what I will be. The word in Hebrew is Aleph, He, Yod, He. Ehi, very similar to this. Asher, the word Asher can mean a straight line. Ehi, Asher, Ehi, Aleph, He, Yod, He. It's translated, I am that I am, or I will be such as that I will be. In English, that's the translation we have. But if you look close, Aleph, He, Yod, He. Well, Aleph, we'll get to in a few minutes, but that's like the plan, the author, the artist who initiates everything. He, revealed as Yod, what the artist made by his hand, revealed. So you might say that the idea would look like what was made looks like. What you see is what was intended. Not just what you see is what you get, but what you see is exactly what he had planned. Asher is the word, it means who, that, which. It also means blessed. It's the tribe Asher, which is to say blessed or happy. It also means to make straight, to authenticate, to verify, confirm. The plan that he had was made to look like exactly what he made looks like, and that's a straight link to what he planned to do and made. In other words, embedded within the language is a graphic sort of form of a picture that looks like this, a dot, a line, and a dot. But it's embedded in the language. He said it the first day of creation with Yehi Or. He also said it with his name, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. There's something about Aleph which starts this, and what happens is exactly this. Well, that's another embedded thing within Aleph Tav. Aleph is the first and Tav is the last. But I came across a verse in Isaiah, and he's talking about the prophecy of how he was going to destroy Assyria. And he says, as I have planned, so shall it be. As I purposed, so shall it come about. And I realized, that's Aleph Tav. That's what Aleph Tav means. As I planned, it will happen exactly as I planned. Over 80 times in the book of Ezekiel, Yahweh says, such and such is going to happen. And then he says, then they'll know that I am Yahweh. Why should they know? Because when what happens is exactly what he said was going to happen, and you go back and go, hey, wait a minute, that's just like he said. And you go, ooh, wow, hey, he's the guy who told the end from the beginning. That's his signature. The signature of Aleph